Imagine walking into a room where your future salary, career trajectory, and professional credibility depend on how clearly you think under pressure. You're handed a vague business problem, a blank sheet of paper, and 30 minutes to prove that you can structure chaos into clarity. That moment is the case interview. And for decades, one book has quietly trained thousands of candidates to win that moment. Case in Point by Marc Cosentino is not just a preparation guide. It's a mindset, a system, and a survival manual for the most demanding interviews in the business world. In this video, we will break down every major chapter of Case in Point, step by step, so you understand not just how to answer case questions, but how to think like a consultant. Chapter 1. Introduction. Consulting firms are not paid for what they know. They are paid for how they think. At the very beginning of Case in Point, Marc Cosentino reframes consulting as the business of renting out brains. Consultants are expected to walk into unfamiliar industries, absorb massive amounts of information quickly, discard what is irrelevant, and bring structure to ambiguity. Their real value lies in their ability to synthesize chaos into clarity and communicate that clarity persuasively to senior decision-makers. This is exactly why consulting firms rely so heavily on case interviews. A case interview is not a trick question or a test of memorized frameworks. It is a compressed simulation of real consulting work. In a real engagement, a consultant might spend months diagnosing a problem, analyzing data, debating hypotheses, and aligning stakeholders. In a case interview, that same process is condensed into 20 to 40 minutes. The time frame is shorter, but the thinking process is the same. The candidate is placed into a role-playing scenario. The interviewer presents a business problem, often with incomplete or ambiguous information, and asks the candidate to solve it. There is rarely a single correct answer. What matters far more is how the candidate approaches the problem, how logically they structure their thinking, how creatively they generate insights, and how clearly they communicate their reasoning. The case is not about impressing the interviewer with intelligence. It is about serving the client. Every question asked, every assumption stated, and every calculation made should move the case forward in the client's best interest. Cosentino emphasizes that dialogue is more important than perfection. Consulting firms want to see how candidates think out loud, how they respond to new information, and how they recover from mistakes. Case interviews have been used for decades because they closely mirror the realities of consulting work. The only major difference between a real consulting project and a case interview is the clock. The chapter also introduces a critical idea. Traditional frameworks alone are no longer enough. While frameworks can be useful tools, relying on them mechanically can make a candidate sound rigid and predictable. To address this, Cosentino introduces the IVK system. Unlike a framework, which is a static tool, a system is a complete process. The IVK system is designed to help candidates start strong, stay organized, think flexibly, and adapt to the evolving nature of modern case interviews. Chapter 2. The Interview. Chapter 2 zooms out to look at the consulting interview as a whole, not just the case portion. The author begins with a reality check. Consulting interviews are competitive, stressful, and demanding. But focusing on the odds is pointless. Candidates are encouraged to block out distractions, trust their preparation, and focus entirely on their own performance. Confidence and composure matter as much as analytical ability. The interview typically begins with introductions. First impressions are formed instantly. Eye contact, a calm demeanor, a genuine smile, and a firm handshake communicate professionalism before a single word is spoken. This opening moment sets the tone for everything that follows. Questions about you. The first segment of most consulting interviews focuses on personal questions. Firms want to understand who you are beyond your resume. Interviewers ask about leadership experiences, teamwork, conflict, failure, persuasion, ethics, and initiative. McKinsey refers to this as the personal experience interview, but every firm uses some version of it. The key to performing well in this section is preparation without scripting. Candidates are advised to develop multiple real stories from their experiences and outline them in bullet points rather than memorizing word-for-word answers. Memorized scripts sound artificial and collapse under follow-up questions. Real stories, delivered naturally, create credibility and emotional impact. Interviewers remember stories far better than generic responses. Being memorable is a strategic advantage. If an interviewer can clearly recall who you are at the end of the day, your chances improve dramatically. The goal is to be remembered for something distinctive and positive, not to blend into a sea of similar candidates. Candidates should also be prepared to go several layers deep. Interviewers often ask for multiple examples of the same skill. If you provide only one story, you risk running out of material. Depth of preparation signals seriousness and professionalism. Why consulting? One of the most critical questions in the interview is why you want to be a consultant. This question must be answered immediately and confidently. Hesitation suggests uncertainty, and uncertainty is fatal in consulting interviews. Candidates should know their answer long before they walk into the room. However, having reasons is not enough. Candidates must communicate those reasons with clarity, structure, and genuine enthusiasm. Consulting firms are listening not just to what you say, but how you say it. A flat or generic answer raises doubts about motivation. Equally important is answering why you want to work for a specific firm. A one-size-fits-all response damages credibility. Candidates are expected to research firm culture, values, industry focus, and people. Demonstrating that you understand what makes one firm different from another signals maturity and intent. The airport test. A defining concept introduced in this chapter is the airport test. Interviewers ask themselves whether they would enjoy being stuck in an airport with you for several hours. This test evaluates social skills, communication style, maturity, and emotional intelligence. Consulting requires constant teamwork and client interaction. Analytical brilliance alone is not enough if a candidate is unpleasant, awkward, or difficult to work with. Interviewers are also assessing whether they would feel comfortable putting you in front of a client. This includes how thoughtfully you speak, whether you think before answering, and whether you can handle pressure without losing composure. Your questions and interview formats. The interview concludes with your questions. This is not a formality. Well-researched, thoughtful questions demonstrate curiosity, preparation, and genuine interest. Candidates are encouraged to ask about challenges, expectations, and success factors, and to clarify anything important before leaving the room. The chapter also addresses different interview formats, including phone interviews, video interviews, and group case interviews. Regardless of format, communication remains critical. In group cases, consultants look closely at teamwork, listening skills, and collaborative leadership. Aggression and dominance are penalized. Constructive engagement is rewarded. Chapter 3. Case Questions. Chapter 3 shifts the focus squarely onto case interviews and what consulting firms are truly evaluating. Consultants often work under intense pressure with incomplete information, tight deadlines, and demanding clients. Case interviews are designed to test whether a candidate can function effectively in that environment. Interviewers are constantly asking themselves whether a candidate is confident, structured, articulate, curious, analytical, and creative. They assess how well the candidate listens, how logically they organize information, how clearly they state assumptions, and how effectively they defend their conclusions without becoming defensive. Case preparation. Preparation is framed as the foundation of confidence. The more exposure candidates have to cases, the more natural the process becomes. Strong candidates often enjoy cases because they treat them as intellectual puzzles rather than exams. Writing your own cases is recommended as a powerful way to internalize structure and anticipate interviewer questions. Interview evaluation. While firms may use different evaluation forms, the underlying criteria are remarkably consistent. Candidates are judged on analytical ability, communication skills, professionalism, teamwork, and creativity. Ultimately, firms care about 4 core attributes: structured thinking, confidence, clear communication, and the ability to go beyond the obvious answer. Types of case questions. Case questions generally fall into three categories: market sizing questions, factor questions, and full business cases. Business cases may be interviewer-driven, where the interviewer guides the analysis step by step, or interviewee-driven, where the candidate must define the structure and direction of the case. Regardless of type, a common mistake is jumping straight into calculations. Candidates are expected to pause, structure the problem, and explain their approach before diving into numbers. Structure signals control and clarity. Market sizing questions. Market sizing questions are designed to test logic rather than accuracy. Candidates must break large problems into smaller components, make reasonable assumptions, and articulate their reasoning clearly. Whether estimating coffee consumption, televisions, or global product demand, the process matters more than the final number. Candidates are encouraged to memorize key baseline figures, round numbers to simplify calculations, and sanity check their results. If an answer seems unreasonable, acknowledging it and adjusting demonstrates good judgment. Factor questions and advanced formats. Factor questions ask candidates to identify and prioritize the key drivers of a business situation. These questions reward breadth of thinking, organization, and prioritization. Strong answers are structured, concise, and often conclude with risks and next steps. The chapter also introduces written cases, presentation cases, and group exercises. These formats reflect how consulting interviews continue to evolve. Success in these settings depends not just on analysis, but on synthesis, time management, communication, and teamwork under pressure. Chapter 4. Ivy Case System. The Ivy Case System is the backbone of Case in Point. It exists to solve one of the biggest problems candidates face in case interviews: what to do in the first critical moments after the interviewer finishes reading the case prompt. Panic, awkward silence, or rushing into random analysis immediately puts a candidate at a disadvantage. The Ivy Case System provides a clear, repeatable process that allows candidates to begin confidently and stay organized throughout the case. At its core, the system is built around the idea of best case thinking. This means thinking like a consultant rather than like a student. Instead of trying to impress with jargon or memorized frameworks, candidates are expected to focus on relevance, prioritization, and impact. Every part of the analysis should connect back to the client's objective. The system begins with listening carefully. Many candidates fail before they even start because they miss key details in the prompt. Strong candidates write everything down, resist the urge to interrupt, and absorb the full context. Once the interviewer finishes, the candidate clarifies the objective to ensure alignment. This avoids solving the wrong problem, which is one of the most common and costly mistakes in case interviews. Next comes restating the problem. This step signals confidence and ensures both parties agree on the task at hand. It also gives the candidate a moment to organize their thoughts. From there, the candidate lays out a structured approach. This structure is not a rigid framework, but a customized roadmap tailored to the specific case. The goal is to show that the problem has been broken down into logical, manageable components. After presenting the structure, the candidate asks thoughtful, targeted questions. These questions are not random. They're designed to test assumptions, narrow the scope, and guide the analysis toward the most impactful areas. Throughout the case, the Ivy Case System encourages hypothesis-driven thinking. Candidates form an initial point of view, test it with data, and refine it as new information emerges. The system also emphasizes flexibility. Real consulting problems evolve, and so do case interviews. Candidates are expected to adapt when assumptions are challenged or when new facts change the direction of the case. The Ivy Case System trains candidates to anticipate alternative scenarios, think through what-if situations, and remain composed under pressure. Chapter 5. Practice Cases. This chapter represents the practical application of everything taught earlier in the book. It contains a wide range of cases spanning industries such as manufacturing, consumer goods, media, healthcare, energy, and technology. These cases are designed to reflect the complexity, ambiguity, and pressure of real consulting engagements. Each case forces the candidate to clarify objectives, structure the problem, analyze data, identify risks, and make clear recommendations. Whether the case involves entering a new market, fixing declining profits, evaluating an acquisition, or responding to competitive threats, the underlying skills remain the same. The Harley-Davidson case challenges candidates to think about brand positioning, market expansion, and long-term growth. The Coors Brewing Company case emphasizes pricing, capacity constraints, and competitive dynamics. Media and technology cases, such as Netflix, push candidates to consider disruption, customer behavior, and evolving business models. Partner cases raise the difficulty level by simulating the dynamics of working with a senior consultant. In these cases, the interviewer plays an active role, pushing back on assumptions, challenging conclusions, and testing emotional resilience. The candidate must defend their reasoning without becoming defensive, adapt to feedback in real time, and maintain control of the narrative. Across all practice cases, a consistent lesson emerges. Success does not come from having the perfect answer. It comes from guiding the interviewer through a clear, logical thought process. Strong candidates communicate their reasoning step by step, check in frequently, and tie every insight back to the client's goal. The cases also reinforce the importance of quantification. Even rough estimates and directional math strengthen credibility when paired with clear logic. At the same time, candidates are reminded that numbers alone are not enough. Business judgment, common sense, and creativity play an equally important role. Chapter 6, Final Analysis. The Final Analysis chapter brings the book's lessons together and reinforces the mindset required to succeed in consulting interviews. Case interviews are not about flawless performance. Mistakes are expected. What matters is how candidates respond when things go wrong. Interviewers closely observe how candidates handle pressure, uncertainty, and criticism. When challenged, strong candidates remain calm, defend their ideas thoughtfully, and adjust their conclusions when presented with compelling evidence. This balance between confidence and objectivity mirrors real consulting work. The chapter emphasizes that consulting firms are fundamentally risk-averse when hiring. They invest heavily in recruiting, training, and staffing new hires. As a result, they look for candidates who demonstrate commitment to consulting, professionalism, and an understanding of the lifestyle. Raw intelligence without maturity or motivation is not enough. Candidates who succeed are those who consistently show structured thinking, clear communication, strong judgment, and emotional resilience. They are comfortable saying, "I don't know," asking clarifying questions, and revising their approach when necessary. These behaviors signal trustworthiness, one of the most important traits in consulting. Partner case charts. This section highlights the importance of visual communication in consulting. Charts are not decorative. They are tools for thinking and persuasion. A well-designed chart clarifies insights, highlights key trends, and supports recommendations in a way that words alone cannot. Candidates are encouraged to think visually even during verbal cases. Clean notes, simple structures, and logically ordered data make it easier for both the candidate and the interviewer to follow the analysis. Partner case charts demonstrate how structured thinking translates into clear, client-ready communication. The underlying message is simple. Consultants are paid to make complex ideas easy to understand. Strong visual organization reflects strong thinking. About the author and closing perspective. The book closes by reinforcing that case interviews are conversations, not interrogations. They are designed to identify people who can think clearly, communicate effectively, and work well with others under pressure. Marc Cosentino's approach reflects decades of experience coaching candidates and observing what actually works in real interviews. By mastering the IVK system, practicing thoughtfully, and developing confidence through preparation, candidates move beyond memorized techniques and begin to think like consultants. That transformation, not just getting the right answer, is the true goal of case interview preparation.